I'm Paul Askew, speaking for Rocky.
Okay, so would you, I guess, go through what you've done to update your plan and provide more information?
Well,
And I
yeah.
guess you've talked to the part-time planner?
Right.
Yeah,
Does
so...
everybody have a copy of the big one?
Yes. Well, we've got a small copy.
Okay. Because I gave her big copies.
Is this? Because
Okay.
Totally different.
okay. Is there anything, that's the elevations, is there anything different than what we had last time with these?
Last time.
Okay,
Last time you didn't have anything. You had plans that were totally wrong.
I seem to
Audrey,
remember these, but,
I'm going to formally open the continued hearing.
Right.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
question last time was, where was the building going? What was it going to look like? Where was it located? So in the big plan, you can see where it's going, what it's going to look like, where the drainage is going to be for the gutter. Down there would be the stone runoff. The exterior door, what the roof line is, what the siding looks like, everything. That's pretty much take care of that. And somebody wanted to know what the overall looked like. So I gave you a color picture, which showed the canopy out front, the building, where the parking is, the gas tank, all that. And then there was one other, which I think that might have been the one you had, because there was a question as to where the test pit for the gas tanks is, and that's out front. We did locate it. It's over on the side where they consider the parking.
Is that the only one you have of that?
That's the only one, but I did give you these. Here's where the test well is.
you have to take the microphone with you if you're going to talk over there.
And that one does show the property lines, which the building is set back, but the town does allow us to build to the property line, but we're going to be 4 feet off it. So we are set back plenty.
What did you figure out you were going to do with any runoff or drainage off the back?
That
of
was
it?
on the big plan. It's going to be a stone trench. It's going to be 1 foot deep, 1 foot wide, and the runoff will go into that.
Okay, good.
It does show,
I'm sorry, that's that
yeah.
right there on there.
Yeah, it's off the back, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was one of the major concerns.
Right. And then the other one was where was the test pit, and we did locate it.
So I mean, I have a list of a number of things that we asked for on a plan here from our minutes of
Okay.
that meeting. Many of them are not shown here.
The runoff's on the big one.
The proposed addition shown to scale,
Yep.
it's not on the site plan.
It's on the,
It's not on the site plan. Present environmental constraints such as the well, which you've got, water runoff, which you've shown over here, fire protection needs, street location, fencing, screening, exterior lighting, landscaping, dumpster location. There's a dumpster on site, but it's not on this plan. The propane tank is not shown in the same place as it is existing. And I'm not done yet. And the major issue for me is the same as I had last time, and that is, should we go through all these and find them adequate and decide to approve this plan, are we supposed to approve this on a plan stamped by somebody else, by an architect that's, many years old, and it's not the plan that you submitted to us, it's somebody else's work? And I had a real problem with that last time, if you recall. We
Right.
had an engineered plan, same situation, was a stamp by somebody else and not a plan made for your proposal.
Right, but I thought as far as the other board members, they didn't have a problem with his stamp, seeing that we were just using this as a reference. And we do have the dumpster location on this one, and it does have the propane, where the propane tank is as well.
No, that's not where the propane tank is. You can look at the photo you gave us, and you can see it's not there. There's also snow stacking shown back where you propose the building. The compressors are in the area you propose the addition. And again, there's details that we talked about that aren't on here, and this plan, I don't know how we would approve this and then attach this plan to our approval. From February '02 by Mr. Fleural, who is no longer with us.
Right.
Audrey, inadvertently, the planning board meeting of November, their minutes were in our file. And this went through site plan review. And I was trying to go through it quickly and see.
I believe it went through conceptual site plan review.
Let's see what it says here. Public hearing. It doesn't say it's conceptual.
I believe that it was conceptual,
hearing.
and they identified that it needed a special exception, and that's why they came
Well, a motion was
here.
made to, let me go through it.
Okay.
And a motion was made with the conditions. Construction of a storage building. Wait a minute. Next page. Plan requires approval under the provisions of, here we go. Litter storage, non-applicable. Floodplain, no part of the subject area falls within FEMA floodplain. Security, non-applicable. Signage, non-applicable. The proposal does not require signage. Architectural planning, board would like to see architectural renderings of the building prior to signing of the final site plan, so that he's going to have to get a final signing. This will be a condition of approval. Review for acceptance, they accepted it as complete. Development, regional impact, and not applicable. Review for approval. The planning board may wish to consider the final action. Final drawings. Each individual sheet and every set of drawings must be stamped and signed by the land surveyor, engineer, or architect responsible for the site plan. So has an architect signed anything? Or the engineer? He could just get a letter from that engineer. That could be a condition of approval.
From this architect?
Yeah.
That would be impossible.
Yeah, he's not alive.
Not with us anymore.
Well, this is a condition of their approval. Or, no, wait a minute, what was it, a condition or? Conditions to be met prior to signing the plan. So if they're asking for it, I don't think we have to. Final drawing, each individual sheet and every set of drawings must be stamped and signed by the engineer or architect for the site plan. The applicant shall submit the following: and they tell you what they want. All the documents submitted in the application package by the applicant, that's on and on. Architectural renderings, appeal process, conditions to be met after final approval, erosion control, lighting. Active and substantial development for this project is defined as construction of storage building. Must be started within 24 months of the planning board approval in order to receive their 5-year vesting. Snow storage shall be removed and stored each storm. As-built plan, if there are any modifications, the modifications shall be on as-built plan, accompanied letter, and they tell you what they want. So some of those things I think that we asked for, they already have included or asked for the planning board. So
I don't feel there's enough here to approve a special exception, but we can take a vote, and if you want to go through the special exception criteria based on what he's turned in, we can go ahead and do that.
yep, let's do that then.
Well, let's decide, let's see if everybody else feels like that's the right way to go.
What's that?
I would like to hear from the other people to decide whether you want to hear the special exception or whether we don't have enough to approve, even if we like what we see through the special exception.
I'd like to go through the
Okay.
criteria and see where it falls.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, so we're going to take that document that you submitted for a special exception and go through it, if I can find it.
Where is it?
Where'd I do it?
I don't believe I have the original application.
I'm looking to see if I got one. Let me see what you got there.
It's right there.
Is this it?
Oh, yeah, it's attached to the minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, it was, the minutes were on top of it. All right, so if you would read your application, starting on page
4. No.
6. Do you
I
have
don't
that?
have it.
Okay, well,
They never
borrow-
gave us a copy.
borrow mine.
Oh, okay.
And you're welcome to ad lib or read it right from the written page, whatever you like.
Read every word or just,
If it's easier for you, you could just read every word.
okay.
Starting
Special
at the
exception
top.
is, yep, what?
Starting at the top.
Yep. Yeah, 8-point special request. A special exception is requested as approved in Article 175.43C, the zoning board ordinance to permit one cold storage add-on 33 by 12 to rear of the building. All right, then you go down to site suitability. The special site is a appropriate location for the proposed structure. We put down that it is in the rear of the building, meets all requirements, has no, I'm going to ad lib, has no effect on anything other, anything else on the property. Then you have the immediate neighbor impact, and I'm not going to go through that, but we put that the cold storage exists, it meets all the requirements as a cold storage unit, and has no impact on A through E. It would blend in well with the existing structure. So, in my words, it would not stand out at all. Boop, 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 boop. Too many pages. Okay, 3, there will be no undue nuisance or serious hazards to the pedestrians or traffic including, no, it is in the rear of the building. It has no impact on the traffic or any nuisance. Once again, it's just a shed that's cold storage. The availability of public services, there, once again, is no impact. There's no water, electric, sewerage. Has nothing to do with storm drains. We do have runoff. There's no fire, streets, parks, or schools, because there's no residency. It is cold storage, once again. What are we up to, 5?
Yes.
The site considered should be given. It will not, I will have very little impact to open space. This uses the space to help keep the back area clean and neat, which right now is a little of a mess because there's nowhere to put it. So he's trying to clean up what he can. Immediate neighbor integrity. Once again, it's a small 33 by 12 building in the back, cold storage. Should have no impact on the neighborhood or neighbors. It will be used to keep the side and backyards clean and neat, which I would think would be a big plus. What are we into? 8. The proposed use and structure is consistent with the spirit of the master plan. The building is being put in the back. It's going to meet whatever master plan there is. It's used for cold storage. It blends in. It will not stand out, be any eyesores. It will hopefully increase the value of his building and possibly other buildings around by keeping the appearance of the property nice and neat. And that should be it.
Thank you. So, while he was reading that, I was looking at the application. All right, so the application says 175-43C.
See.
That was written in like a magic marker pen. And yet, the legal ad says 175-43A1C. So the legal ad is correct. Whoever filled out this application put in the incorrect citation.
That was the lady that sits down at the desk. She wrote the number for us.
On the front page, it does say A1C, and on the second page, the A1 is missing.
On page
4.
6, page 6 of the application.
But look at page 4, it says the whole thing.
Well, what I'm saying is, we've got 2 different citations here. I read that. The legal ad is correct, is what I said. I'm just pointing out that the application, whoever filled the second page of that out, didn't complete it correctly. And because the legal ad is correct, that's what we will go by, 175-43A1C. A1C. Any non-conforming portion of a building or structure may be expanded or extended by no more than 25% of the non-conforming building or structure, but with no further intrusion into the setback area. By special exception, the 25% expansion shall be a total cumulative expansion based on the lawfully existing non-conforming structure. So I think our main job this evening is to determine the 25%.
That certainly should be on here. And it's
Because
easy
they've gone
enough to
through site plan,
determine.
I'm really not interested in getting to all of that.
It's 1595 divided by, the cold storage is 396, or 12 by,
24.8%.
24.8.
Thank you, Chuck.
It's 24.8% based on the numbers presented.
Good job.
I seem to remember that from last time.
Yeah, we ran the numbers last time, and it's,
Yeah.
All right, so it's
legit.
under.
Okay.
Can you, are you done? Can you define for me what is meant by cold storage?
Cold storage means it has no heat, no air conditioning. It is just cold,
So it's got no heat,
no heat, no running water, no sewerage. It's just to me, it's just a glorified shed.
so
That's a
So I'm
text.
finding a little bit of contradiction in what I'm hearing, and I'd see if you can clear it up for
Okay.
me. All through this, it talks about how this will help neaten up the back of the building, because when, in the site visit, we were shown some things that need to go into this shed and a bunch of stuff that needed to go to the dump.
Correct.
And then when we went inside the building, the owner said he was going to put these stacks of drinks out in the cold storage.
Okay.
And then he's going to leave the door open in case it gets too cold so the drinks don't freeze.
Right, well, wintertime.
Right.
Whether or not that works, that's something else to be determined.
So one of my questions is, if he's going to put some of the, the delivery racks and whatnot that were sitting outside into the cold storage, which I assume that's kind of what it's for,
Right.
why isn't the rest of the stuff already gone to the dump?
That I can't answer.
And here's my fear, is that stuff's not going to go to the dump.
Well,
It's still going to be outside the building, and the cold storage is going to be used for drinks.
Well, it'll be used for whatever he has inside the store that's extra,
So
overstock.
it's an expansion of the stock of the store.
Well, hopefully, yes, because he has no room he's out of room for his stuff.
That happens a lot to people.
Right. And in business, you're always looking for good deals, so you overbuy, but now you have nowhere to put it, so you can't get the buys.
I've seen that 100 times. I know
Right.
what you mean.
Yeah,
But it concerns me, because I do think that the property needs to be much neater than it is.
I agree.
I don't really see any effort to that right now. And so I want to suggest that, should we move ahead, I would like to see a fence along the property line.
Well,
What?
that's really beyond the scope of this application.
I don't think so.
We can't require them to clean up the junk behind that building. That's not our purview. The one question I do have, though, is there going to be any kind of cooling system for that cold storage room?
no,
Okay.
nothing.
So it's dry storage?
Dry storage. Well,
Unheated dry storage?
all right.
Okay.
We would.
Let me
excuse
just say, I didn't
Nope.
ask for him to clean it up. What I asked for is a fence, so that if it's not cleaned up, the public isn't impacted by it. And I think that does...
I don't like it either, but
I
there's
think
nothing
that,
we can do
can I finish?
about
I
it.
think that does fall under, under the F, fencing, you know. I think it does fall under the site, what we're looking at.
When we look at the criteria that we just went through and the plan for the storage, it did say that it would result in a more attractive backyard, a cleaned up backyard. So, so the expectation is that if we approve based on that representation, then we'll see it cleaner.
We have already cleaned out, believe it or not, 5 trailer loads of garbage. When he bought it from Sal, that backyard was a mess. And even inside, the garbage we pulled out, I'm telling you, I carted away 5 trailer loads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably needs 2 or 3 more, but
I don't even think we should be talking about that. I think we should stick back, reel things back a little bit here and get to the criteria and what zoning is all about. It isn't, upkeep of the property and,
I think the point has been made, how we feel about what's the clutter back there.
Right.
And I feel that we need to only address the 8 criteria And so then I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Unless the board, do you have any other questions, board?
Nope.
No,
Second.
okay. Then I'm closing the public hearing for the purposes of deliberation. We will not reopen the hearing unless there's a vote taken by the board to do so. So we now go into deliberations. There'll be no more questions asked. And we will start with number 1, site suitability, adequate space, usable space, adequate access, absence of environmental constraints, i.e. floodplain. How does the board feel about that? Does he meet it or does he not?
I think he meets the criteria.
Everybody else? Anything?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, number 2, immediate neighborhood impact, that the proposal is not detrimental, injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the abutting properties in particular, and neighborhood in general. Typical impacts which extend beyond the proposed site include excessive trip generation, noise, vibration, dust, glare, heat, smoke, fumes, gas, or odor, inappropriate hours of operation. Does the board feel it does or does not apply? Comment?
I would say it meets the criteria.
Number 3, that there'll be no undue nuisance or serious hazards to pedestrians or vehicular traffic, including the location and design of access way of off-street parking. How does the board feel about number 3?
There's no problem there, I don't think.
Okay.
I'm good.
Number 4, availability of public service and facility, that the facilities are available and adequate to serve the needs of this use. Sewer, water, storm drainage, fire protection, streets, parks, schools. Well, because parks and schools don't apply. The street doesn't apply. So how do you feel about A, B, C, D? On number 4? Anybody? Apply, doesn't apply?
Well, we talked about stormwater drainage, and he does have a drainage system along the back of the new building.
Yeah.
And other than that, I think he meets everything else.
Okay, and the plan does show that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Number 5, appropriateness of site consideration shall be given to parking scheme, non-applicable, traffic circulation, non-applicable, open space, non-applicable, fencing and screening, non-applicable, landscaping, non-applicable, signage, non-applicable, commercial vehicles, no, they're not going to be storing from there, non-applicable, and lighting impact, there is supposed to be no lighting. So number
So
5.
I don't believe it meets number 5 at all because there actually is no site plan submitted that can be used. And that's just my opinion, as stated in the
agree with
beginning
that.
of the hearing.
What she,
She said
appropriateness of the site plan. Well, there was a site plan and it went to the planning board.
No, the planning board did not have anything that we didn't get.
this is the only site plan. This one.
I watched the planning board, they didn't have one.
But they are requiring one to give him approval, correct?
Yeah,
That's what you read.
yeah.
So we might have to do something contingent on, yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
Well, sometimes we put a condition that if something is presented at the planning board that we didn't have, they have to come back to us for us to review it. We've done that, right?
Right, if there's changes made at the planning board level, they have to come back to us. A substantial change or modification. So we could approve this with the condition that the plan that we approve and put the date on it is acceptable to the planning board.
I can't agree to a plan that's acceptable to us that's presented the way these plans are. again, I don't believe we can use a professional stamped plan regardless, which is not to say we couldn't require them to come back with whatever plan that the planning board approves of, but it's not, I don't want to include any plan that's been submitted to us.
Why can't we approve conditioned upon a corrected site plan?
Now, just conditioned upon a site plan
Yeah,
from the planning board.
yeah.
You're saying conditioned upon the acceptance of the planning board's site plan? That the planning board is going to accept their site plan?
An approved site plan by the planning board, yeah.
And what did I read? Didn't they approve a site plan?
They did not have a site plan. That was a condition that they needed before they approved. It was also mentioned that a site plan with a professional stamp was not going to be acceptable to them during their hearing, but that's not in the minutes.
Would that mean they would have to come back at the next meeting with,
With an approved site plan by the planning board, so that this board could approve the special exception and write down the date and the preparer of the site plan that's being approved by this board. It's kind of like an extra step, but otherwise I don't see how we can attach any of these conditions to any piece of paper. So I could make a motion.
well,
I would, and then somebody could second it for discussion or vote it down.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the special exception with the condition that the applicant come back with an approved site plan by the planning board for us to attach our approval to if it meets our review.
Second.
Discussion. Conditions to be met prior to the signage of plans. The following plan, as amended by the planning board approval, incorporation into the approval, Plan 1, Sheet 218, Lot 103, site plan, prepared by, and the owner of record, prepared by Mechanic Street, prepared by Breed Properties, 240 Mechanic Street, Lebanon, New Hampshire, owner Jaya Realty. And so this is what they approved. They had.
Do you
they
have a
had right
plan
here.
approved by the planning board?
That's right.
We don't have that.
That was the one that came last time.
But
That's the one. That's the one they approved.
so they approved
They
that.
approved this, yeah.
Well, I can't.
Is that?
He's holding it up.
I'm getting
They
confused
approved
here.
it
Is that
already.
this right here? Is that this one?
No, that's the one that we saw last time.
Yeah, it does look like that one, yeah.
So that's the same as this?
Yeah, that's the same one. It does show the propane location, the dumpster.
No,
Yeah, not to
that's
argue.
not the same plan.
Let me see that. Please. No, this is totally different.
I think he transposed over the,
Oh, something.
Okay.
I mean, there's not, it's,
Well, that's dated
well,
1990.
yeah, it's dated, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if this is the one
This,
You just read that, right? This name,
Right.
Robert L., was that on there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one,
this is the one,
that,
this is the one I gave her 6 or 7 copies of. so-
we should have got,
Right.
I would have liked to get it.
This is the one, yep. I had it done, was done at Blacksmith,
Suzanne?
and it does show it says right there, the tank and the dumpster, parking, snow removal. And if you look in this one, it shows where the asphalt is in the back. So we're going right over the asphalt, and then just a little further past it.
That's the plan that we saw at the first hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, that I had made a little notch out where, like, hand drew, where we wanted to put the extension.
So could you read the conditions part about having the plan from the planning board, what they wanted on the plan, the signature, the stamp, whatever it was?
Whatever you just read, I would like to hear that again.
That too, yeah.
From the,
Conditions to be met prior to the signing of the plan. They approved the plan, but they didn't sign it for recording. All right, the following plan, as amended by the planning board approval, is incorporated into the approval. Plan 1, sheet 218, lot 103, site plan, prepared for Breed Properties, 240 Mechanic Street, Lebanon, New Hampshire. Owner of record, Jaya Realty. Prepared by Donald Jenkins, 63 New Road, Center Barnstead. Date stamped, received by the Wolfeboro Planning Department, October 10th, 2024.
Can you read the conditions that they, the
Okay.
amendments that they put on that?
Yeah, then, final drawing. Each individual sheet in every set of drawings must be stamped and signed by the land surveyor, engineer, architect responsible for the plan. The applicant shall submit the following, and they're talking about what pages, and 24 by 36 black
Right, so
line.
go back to that sentence you just read. They're asking for stamps.
No, but
on
they
each
said,
page.
But they said, this is a conditional approval, that conditions to be met prior to signing, so they've
With amendments.
approved it.
With amendments.
Yeah,
The amendments are what you just read, that needs to be stamped on each page by the licensed person who presented it, or who prepared it.
but they're not going to, even if we approve this tonight, they're not going to sign it till they
Oh, I know.
get this.
Yeah. So my motion would say, based on the planning board signed site plan, I mean, what I want is I want back what it is that they're going to completely be done with. I said approved. I guess I should say signed, because they're not going to sign it until those amendments are met, and that would be great.
Okay, will you withdraw your motion
Yes.
and restate it more clearly? Will you draw your second?
Yes.
Okay, now, do you want this to read from?
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. I make a motion to approve the special exception. Case number 03-SE-25, tax map 218-103, 160 South Main Street, with the condition that the applicant bring back to this board the signed site plan approval from the planning board. So they're not going to sign it till they get these amendments, and that's fine. I don't need to read through the amendments. It's a signed planning board approval.
signed on that plan that they're talking about.
Right. Signed however it is that they want to approve it.
But why don't you reference the plan that they're referring to? Can you find that there?
Well, then I would feel like I have to read the amendments too.
Well, why don't you say per that meeting of those amendments?
Per the signed site plan review, because it's going to be a different meeting when they do this. It's going to be a different date and everything.
I just want to make sure they get the same plan.
I actually don't care if it's a different plan as long as it meets their amendments,
Okay.
because we're going to review it again. That's the whole point.
Okay, I'm sorry to make you repeat your
That's okay.
motion. Would you please repeat it again?
I motion to accept to approve the special exception, case number 03SE25, tax map 218-103, 160 South Main Street,
Condition
with the
on-
condition that the applicant return to the ZBA for review of the planning board signed approved site plan.
Okay, second. Discussion.
Explain that to me.
Huh?
Just, can you explain that to me a little better, so they're gonna, or maybe don't want to,
So when the planning board is all set with their site plan, with all the amendments they had that she read, and they sign off on it, it's ready to go to the registry of deeds, before it goes, it needs to come back here so that we can review it to make sure that there isn't anything that has changed with it that we disagree with.
and that would be at the next meeting. We would review.
It will be at the meeting after the planning board
Oh, when,
is
yeah,
finished.
after the planning
Yeah.
board does it. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Is there a second?
Okay, I seconded it.
Oh, okay.
Is there a vote, Audrey?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
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 Okay. The motion's
you.
passed. You're going to have to go see the planning
Planning
board,
board.
then come back to us.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now, what do I do with that?
Suzanne, if all we need is a signed site plan, does this have to get another meeting here at the ZBA?
I'll have to take that up later.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What did I do? Where's my, no, here's my agenda. Okay, so the second continued public hearing was for Scott Sanders, for Jared and Alyssa Barlow Revocable Trust. Are they here? Yes.
This is me, I'm representing them,
Hi.
Josh Andrews.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing on this application. And do you have it with you, your application that you filled out?
No, I never got it returned to me, copy of it or anything.
Well, let's see. So this is for a variance for tax map 20532, 63 King Pine Road, case 06V25, section 17543B2 of the zoning ordinance. And it's the non-conforming structure, replacement of a structure, provided that the replacement structure is the same size and configuration as the non-conforming structure, and the location is the same or less non-conforming. And I'm looking for your application. What did I do with it?
You can borrow mine.
Can't find my own.
So can I just review the section and why it's here, just so we understand? It's on the same footprint. It's going to be increased in height, and part of that is already over the setback, therefore it needs a variance. Is that what I understand from this app? I wasn't here last time, by the way. So if it was, the reason it needs a variance is because part of this is over the setback line, and they're increasing it. It's a non-conforming expansion within a setback, right?
I thought it was just a height. Or am I wrong?
Yeah,
But
Well,
it's
no,
the height because it's in the setback.
He originally started with just the garage and nothing on top of it. And it was, am I right, when we
Yeah.
went to the site visit?
thought it
Yeah.
was a height.
So he was supposed to, his initial intent was to rebuild the garage on the original footprint. And then they decided they'd like to put a storage area on top of it.
Okay, because the first one wouldn't have needed any process.
We took no action on the first.
Okay,
So we're
gotcha.
really doing two things at once, I think, now. We have to make sure that the building is within the original footprint and that they don't exceed the height restriction.
Oh, I see this other, the engineered plan has the garage moved.
Yeah.
no, it hasn't.
No?
Nothing's moved.
No.
Okay, then the house footprint isn't exactly accurate, which is fine.
Yeah, that was without the additions and stuff that they had done in the past. That was what they gave me down in the town hall, which was a complete just mess because people have been quitting and leaving and
I
trying
know.
to get all the stuff done.
So this Horizon Engineering site plan is accurate?
Yes.
And what you're still doing is going up 4 feet, and that's the
Yep.
only difference? Okay.
Yeah, it's going on
Thank
the
you.
same slab and everything. The whole first floor was already built. We have an approved plan. They're trying to get approved on the extra 4 feet
Gotcha.
storage.
Okay, so it's an expansion of a non-conforming structure, and the expansion is vertical in the setback. Do you want to read through your points? Does anybody have any more questions?
Yeah, I can't find mine.
Well, he's got mine, so.
Yeah, what do you want me to read?
The variance criteria, this should start on page 5,
6.
6.
6.
Okay, the undersigned hereby request a variance from article, which isn't filled in on this one, I don't know why, and asks the said terms of zoning ordinance be waived to permit a 4-foot knee wall to be built above garage, which have a permit to demo and rebuild the garage, an existing slab that is built prior to construction. Also would like to add a dormer on the driveway side of garage, which I was told that didn't have to go through this part of it. That was through the regular permitting. Number 1, variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the owner also owns the properties to the right of the lot and across the street from the lot. The garage is not blocking anything on all sides and will be used for storage. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because the new garage is to be built on the existing concrete slab from which the garage was removed to start with, therefore not changing any of the distance to property lines. Also, we have received a permit to rebuild the same spot without these changes. Substantial justice is done because the owner will be afforded the area they need for storage of seasonal equipment, furniture, that they don't currently have and will be built to the design of their liking. Number 4 is crossed out, kind of. The values of surrounding properties will not be diminished because the changes to the garage will not lower property value of owner or neighbors, and garage is in the exact same spot as existing. On to the next page too, or? Yeah. Page 7.
Nothing on it?
There's nothing on the top part, it's just this right here.
Yeah, just read that one.
Okay, which would be, owing to the special conditions of the property set forth above that distinguish it from other properties in the area, the proposed use is a reasonable one because It is just for storage, for efficiency, and does not block views or change anything around the lots. And I believe that's the last one. Yep.
Thanks, can I have that back?
Okay, and February 3rd, we reviewed your application, and it was for variance under Chapter 175-43B2. And to allow for a non-conforming structure, replacement of a structure, provided the replacement is in the same size and configuration as the non-conforming structure, and the location is the same or less non-conforming location. We move to continue for a special exception per plan submitted for expansion of a non-conforming structure to the next meeting of the 7th. Per the requirements in the application, there are a set of plan requirements that have to be met that the existing plan does not meet. Please submit plans that meet these requirements.
Which is the two sets that we got this one and then the other set that has all the information on it. That is what they were asking for.
See, and the application says, pre-existing non-conforming garage in a different configuration. And what I thought the first time he appeared before us was because that it was not exactly on that cement pad or foundation.
Yeah, but
And that's why he came the first time. And then when we went and did the site visit, he said that the owner would like to put a small storage up over. And we said, you'll have to talk to the planner, and that's what required the second application or the second part of this to get the variance for the location and make sure that the height is not beyond the height requirement.
the location is the same. He's already said he's building on the existing slab,
Yep.
correct?
Correct.
So,
And the height is definitely not higher than the zoning allows for.
right, the height is taller, but it's still within the max height allowed by our code.
Okay, so we're back to
So-
the foundation then.
The foundation is existing.
Station's been there.
It's existing, non-conforming.
Okay, so
The slab was there, they tore it down, right?
Yeah, that was already
So-
there. From
Slab was there.
Are you using the exact same slab, or did you
Yep,
report
same
it?
exact slab, yeah.
Same
So the
slab.
reason it's non-conforming is because a small area of it goes over the setback line. That's why the garage is non-conforming. You get that?
yeah,
Okay.
But that's a pre-existing condition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Which is why he's here for a variance, because that little room on top, in that little slice, that little space on top in the 4 feet is within that setback area. It's almost de minimis, but he's here.
and does that exceed the 25%?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So,
So it's a special, well, it's a variance because it's over the line.
okay.
And the rest of the volume, does it exceed 25%? Well, as we learned last time, which was a good explanation that I had never understood, the area above the footprint doesn't have a percentage restriction. It's the footprint expansion that has the 25% restriction. What happens above still needs a special exception, but there's no percentage restriction, which now that section makes sense to me after hearing that.
Okay, so is everybody comfortable with the application? And we know where we're at with it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Any
Yes.
other questions?
No?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
And we will go into deliberations, and we have to go through the 5 criteria. And we usually do 1 and 2 together. The variance is not contrary to the public interest, and the spirit of the ordinance is observed. And I don't think that it conflicts with the explicit or implicit purpose of the ordinance, and it doesn't alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
I agree.
It doesn't threaten public health or safety.
It's very, very much like many other such structures.
Okay? Everybody okay with 1 and 2?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. 3, substantial justice is done.
There's no reason that this would harm the public out of proportion to benefiting the applicant.
Correct.
Agree.
Okay? Number 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished, and I would think that, I think you took down an old building and you're putting up a new, better designed, and it would be more beneficial to the neighborhood to have a new building there.
Agree.
Taxes will go up, we'll all like that.
Agree.
Agreed, okay. Now the tough one, number 5. Little enforcement of the ordinance result in unnecessary hardship. Unnecessary hardship is no fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application of the provision of the property, and the proposed use is a reasonable use. I would say because it was a garage, and it's going to still be a garage, and the only modification is small storage above, and that it is a reasonable use.
Not just the small storage above, but a very small piece of the small storage above. That's in the setback.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're done.
I think that's it, 1 through 5. Make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance for variance case number 08V25, tax map 200-020, 5 Earl Shore Road, variance from setback requirements.
And per the plan dated,
Per the plan
which one do you
submitted
want to
with the
use?
application, received March 31st, 2025, showing the front facade of a garage with a dormer.
And I will make the traditional amendment conditions. Let me find it. All federal and state permits shall be received prior to the construction, including but not limited to the town of Wolfeboro building permit. The approval is per all the documents submitted, which Audrey just said the date. The application as submitted to the ZBA does not satisfy the submittal requirements for the building permit or a site plan approval. The notice of decision shall be recorded at Carroll County Registry of Deeds, and the applicant shall be responsible for the payment of all fees. The variance shall be valid if exercised within 2 years from the date of approval or further extended by local ordinance or by the Zoning Board of Adjustments for good cause in accordance with RSA 674-33, Roman 1A. Appeal process pursuant to RSA 6772. Any aggrieved party may appeal this decision to the County Superior Court. within 30 days of the date of the board, to approve or disapprove this application. And in some cases, the appeal, dependent on the incidents, to the Housing Appeals Board, 677-4 and 677-15 and 679-6. And I will close the public hearing and take a vote. Roll call vote to
Yes.
approve. Audrey?
Yeah, Audrey, yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Ryan, yes.
Chuck, yes.
The vote is unanimous. You have your approval.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me put this back up there. Okay. So, where are we? Okay, the next public hearing is, and Chuck, would you read into the record one collective statement about the site visits that we did?
Are we changing the order of this?
I'd like to.
Yes, we did 5 site visits today. All 5 members were present at each site visit. First site visit was at 52 Red Brook Circle. We reviewed the property. No one from the owner was represented there. Second site visit was to 5 Earl Shore Drive. We met with Cara Brusetta, Tom Varney, and Josh Tebow. Third visit was at 180 Sewell Road. Amy Bentley was there, and we reviewed that site. Fourth site visit was at 14 Elm Street, and Scott Lawler was the engineer present to explain the situation there. The last site visit was at 591 Center Street. Dr. Raquel was there, Ali Mahadashti, and Phil Marbury were there to review that site.
Okay, thank you. Wait a minute.
Would you entertain my motion to move the agenda around?
Oh, okay, now, what did you prefer to do?
That seems like yesterday. I got to get back there. I had asked if we could move the Atwell on M to be heard before the Sewell Road application.
No, the Sewell Road one, is that the one with the tear down?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, well, I guess it's 6 to 1 half to the other. They've got the engineer here, and they've got an attorney here. And Atwell, Atwell, raise your hand? And do you have an attorney? Yeah, so I think we should just stick with the agenda. Because whichever one I move ahead of the other, they both have people they have to pay.
I understand that. That was my suggestion.
I mean, it's not gaining anything for anyone. So it's up to the board. Does the board want to move the agenda?
Sure.
What do we gain by moving the agenda around?
I think that this one will be quicker than the Sewell Road one, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
Well, the third one will be even quicker.
So true. So, Jody, yes, no, maybe? I mean, it's a board decision. Let's just move ahead, make a decision.
Yes.
What have I got here?
I just-
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
don't know, don't know,
Yes.
don't know.
I just assume move the agenda around to the fastest one first. If
Yeah, well, we have,
What do you, yes or no?
I'm sorry, what was the the last
No, they're
site.
the last one.
They're the last one, but they're the shortest in the,
They're the easiest one.
yeah, I
They
mean,
do also have an attorney, which I wasn't expecting.
Right.
Okay.
you know, and then I don't know what to say.
Well, but those
I mean,
two have agreed to continue. The last two have agreed to continue.
No,
first two.
the one that's
We've got
left.
three. We've got
The
the
first two.
Sewell Road, Atwell.
No, I'm sorry I brought it up.
And Ali Mahadashi,
591.
should be fairly quick.
Yes.
I suggest we do that one first.
Okay.
The other two
The other two are both going to be long.
yeah, they're both.
are going to be long. Atwell, you think is going to be quicker?
Well, will be quick.
No,
No.
no. But anyway.
Certainly not gonna be
Chuck,
quicker
why
than
don't
the
you
third one.
Did you make a motion?
I take it back.
Okay. Chuck, you want to make a motion on that one or not?
Yes.
Well, then
I move
make
that we hear Ali Mahadashi next.
Okay.
Second.
Second, those in favor?
Yes.
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 No.
No, okay. All right, so, number 5.
But you better make it quick.
I will do my very best to make it as fast as I possibly can. Are you prepared for me to begin?
Yeah, I'm getting rid of paper a little at a time here. Okay, so, yes, so as recorded, we did the site visit, and I guess we should read into the record, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing for tax map 234-011-52. Oh, I'm reading the wrong one. I'm sorry. Tax map 148-17-591 Center Street, case 10V25, public hearing for a variance under section 175-88.4, permitted use of Wolfeboro Planning and Zoning Ordinance, and as stated, a site visit was done. So public hearing is open, and if you put your name to the record and voice-activated microphone, speak loud and clear, please.
Of course. My name is Attorney Philip Marbury here on behalf of Ali Mahadishti, and also with the appropriate authorizations given from the actual property owner, which is CNS McLean Realty Trust, LLC. Those that were attached to the application, and so all the board members should have copies of those documents. We're here for a very simple purpose. This is a really unique property, a strange one that has, since the time it was first built, been used exclusively for commercial purposes, was built for commercial purposes, but happens to be built in a rural residential zoning district. And so from its inception, it's required variances for every new tenant and every new owner that wants to use a business there. And we are simply the next in line seeking to use the next purpose for it, and it's for one of the units in particular that we've applied for, is for medical services. Professional services is probably what the zoning ordinance would use for that. And so we're asking that the zoning board grant a variance because that's not a permitted use in rural residential, and we want to continue using it. I'll briefly go through the criteria, although I'm going to keep it very brief because I've submitted more detailed application, and if you have any additional questions, happy to answer them. The first one, the granting of this variance will not be contrary to the public interest because many of the reasons I just said. It's been used since its creation as commercial property. It's going to be continued to use as that commercial property. And the use that it's going to be used for is not more inhibitive, restrictive, problematic for the neighbors. It's going to be medical services, a small clinic that's going to perform limited medical procedures and assistance for the community. The spirit of the ordinance is going to continue to be observed for all the same reasons. This isn't a drastic change. It's basically just continuing the change with a new tenant, a new specific use, if you will. Substantial justice is done. Again, if this were to be denied, that would cause a substantial injustice because this has been the sole purpose of this property since the time it was created. I will note just for the record that it abuts a commercial district right next to it, and I believe that's probably probably why this board initially granted this way back whenever it first was built. But it doesn't stand out. It's not unusual for the area. It fits exactly in, and it just creates no problems for this to continue to be used. The values of the properties will not be diminished, the surrounding properties, for the same reason. In fact, I believe that they'll go up because it's being, as with the new use, it's being renovated just aesthetically to make it look more pleasing. It's going to continue to be used rather than derelict and run down, and that's what we want. We don't want properties like this to go fallow. That's a bad thing. And then literal enforcement of the provisions of this ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship because of the special conditions of this property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. Primarily, there aren't many properties that are in rural residential that have been used exclusively for commercial since the time they were first built and approved. And this is one of those. That's a very unique circumstance. And it's simply continuing it. And so there's no fair and substantial relationship between the purposes of the ordinance applicable to the applicant and the special application of that provision to the property. And this use is eminently reasonable. Again, it's going from, I think in the previous, it's been a motorcycle repair shop, it's been a Wentworth Watershed Association offices, and now it's going to be a small medical professional services clinic. And so with all of that, we submit the application to the board and ask that they approve this variance so that they can continue to use it for such purposes.
3.5 minutes, well done.
I told you I'd make it fast.
So can I just make a statement about non-conforming uses in a building, whether the building's non-conforming or conforming? So there's two different non-conforming things. One is a building or a structure or something physical, and the other thing is a non-conforming use. Some things have both. The building is not non-conforming, but the uses are non-conforming because it's residential. So as they change from tenant to tenant, the use might change from one type of use to another. And in a non-conforming building, you want to not allow uses that have a much bigger impact than was originally permitted. So if they wanted a restaurant or a bar here, that might not be appropriate. But a business use, something that has not a very large impact, that's similar to the other impacts that have always been there, would be a more appropriate application. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that they don't exactly fit into what the allowed uses are.
I would like them to pick one.
You kind of pick one.
Yeah, so personal service or professional office, and we can read the definition. That way it's clear what this is.
Sure.
A personal service is establishments primarily engaged in providing services involving the care of a person or his or her apparel. And professional office is a building containing one or more offices in which there is no display of unrelated stock or wares in trade commodities sold, nor any commercial use conducted other than the professional offices of a doctor, dentist, lawyer, architect, engineer, and related laboratories or other similar professional services, but excluding barbershops, beauty salons, or similar services, which would actually be personal services.
Yeah, so we're going to stick with professional services. That is what it would be.
Professional offices.
Professional offices,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
So are you reading from the definition section?
Yes.
Okay. What was that?
Professional
No.
office.
Yeah. Has it got a number?
No. Oh, 175, the whole definition section is something.
88, 88.4?
I don't know.
5?
I have to go back to the A's before I can tell you that. Article 27, terms defined, 175-175.
175, 175?
Yeah, should remember that.
Oh, okay, so you're in the definitions. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So are you saying that under professional use,
Professional offices.
offices, the change is only from, and it hasn't been a motorcycle place forever. And that was down underneath, that wasn't above.
Correct. Most recently, it was the Wentworth Watershed Association. They had offices in there.
Above.
Yeah, that was a business use. That office was a business use.
Above was a nonprofit organization who had rented that space.
Right, and they fall under a business use, an office.
Okay, so you're now saying they're applying from a business use to a personal, professional service use?
Professional office.
Professional office?
Yes.
Okay. And as long as we get that clear in the record. And what I've always been taught was when there's a change of use that affects the exterior, then it's a big deal. There's no exterior change on this whatsoever, so this should not be a difficult conversion.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, I think, is there anyone in the public that wants to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, does the board have any further questions? Because once I close the hearing, I'm not going to open it up again.
Nope.
You're all set. Okay, I'm closing the public hearing, and we'll go into deliberations and go through the 5 criteria. And as usual, we'll do combine 1 and 2, wherever it is. 1 and 2, which is the variance is not contrary to the public interest and the spirit of the ordinance is observed. There's certainly no alterations
No.
external that change the character of the neighborhood. I don't think it's contrary to the public interest. Anybody else want to add in on that?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, number 3, substantial justice is done. The benefit to the applicant should not be outweighed by the harm to the general public. Anybody want to speak to that?
It's an appropriate business to be leasing this space, and the applicant, the building owner gets to have a tenant.
Agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished, and as I said, there's no external evidence of anything happening there, so I would think that there's no either increased or decreased value in property in the area. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
Nope. Agree.
No.
Okay. Number 5, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. An unnecessary hardship, the big marker on that is a reasonable use. Is this a reasonable use?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it is.
It's a commercial building with a spot ready to be leased.
It's similar in a way to what was last there.
Okay. In impact, anyway. Similar impact.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good point. Okay, can I get a motion to approve this with the conditions? Approve case number, where is it?
Approve case number,
591 Center Street, Wolfeboro, tax map 148, lot 17, for a variance for a personal, what did you call it?
it's a
Professional office.
Office.
Professional,
Office.
Office.
professional office. Per the plan, and what was the date on the plan? Somebody? The plan date?
I don't see a date on it.
They have a date.
You get an application date or a plan date there?
I think the application date is appropriate. No plan is strictly necessary for a change of use exclusively, and so the building permits are all still going to be issued and all of that. But the application date was
Well, I
May
got a plan,
17th.
I got a plan here, so I'm going to use this as a reference.
Sure.
And,
Application was March 17th,
Do you see it?
2025, and it's a floor plan of interior renovations with no exterior changes.
okay. And that will be with the conditions as follows. All federal and state permits shall be received prior to the construction, including but not limited to the Town of Wolfeboro building permit. The approval per this document as submitted, dated, and Audrey just gave the date of that plan. The application as submitted to the ZBA does not satisfy the submittal requirements for a building permit or site plan approval. The notice of decision shall be recorded at Carroll County Deeds at the cost to the applicant. The variance shall be valid if exercised within 2 years from the date of approval or as further extended by local ordinance or by the Zoning Board of Adjustments for good cause in accordance with 674-33 Roman 1A appeal process pursuant to 677-2 and 677-4 and 677-15 and 6796 is any aggrieved party may appeal this decision to the Carroll County Superior Court within 30 days of the date of the board voted to approve this plan, and in some instances to the Housing Appeals Board. And so, did I get a second to that motion to approve?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, roll call.
Audrey, yes.
Kate?
Kate, yes.
Aye, yep.
Jody, yes. Ryan, yes.
Sumner, yes.
Okay, you've got your approval.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of
Thank
the board.
you. Now, let me get reorganized here. 5, 4. Okay, so we have 2 left.
What do you want to do next?
Oh, get rid of this one. So what's the board's pleasure? Are we going to flip a coin to see who goes next? You get any good rationale as to why someone should go next?
I think we're going to need all of our brain cells for the Elm Street case.
The architect raised his hand. Did he hear him?
That's my rationale.
Yeah, I did. I'm looking for my
More brain
agenda.
cells than
Either or.
possible.
All right.
Okay, so on the agenda, Sewell Road was next.
I know.
Are we going to stay with that, or do you want to?
I've already given my opinion about 3 times, so it's
Yeah.
kind of up to the rest
Say we
of you.
just stay with it.
I'd like to go with Atwell,
Oh, you want-
Elm Street.
Stay with the agenda?
No, Elm Street.
The architect for 180 Sewell Road raises her hand. She has something to say.
Chairwoman?
We actually submitted for our application on January 13th, and we got bumped to the March meeting, which in the process of the building inspector and the administrator leaving, we sort of got left off the agenda, so I guess I would argue that you hear us next, please. I would argue that you hear us next, please.
Well, Atwell had a similar situation too, so,
Why don't we flip a coin?
no, I don't want to flip a coin.
Okay.
I'd rather just stay with the agenda.
You're the chairwoman.
So we got to take a vote.
Stick with the agenda.
Yeah, stick with the agenda.
Stick.
Okay,
So 3-2?
there you go.
Okay. So we're sticking with the agenda. And this was for variance 180 Sewell Road, tax map 229-30, case 05V25, public hearing for a variance under section 175-43A1C, expansion and extension of a structure, and we did a site visit. So I will open the public hearing, and if you'll introduce yourself, you're a new face to us, and
Not to me.
welcome.
Hi, I'm Amy Bentley. I'm the architect here with the homeowner, Andy and Mary Allen. I did the site visit as they were en route from the airport when you were out on the site. So I was going to introduce the project, and then I think Mr. Allen would like to also say something.
Okay, so typically what we like people to do is explain their plan and then go through the criteria, and you're welcome to either read right from your application or interpret it as you wish.
Okay. Mr. Allen has owned this property for about 2 years. He bought it in March of 2023. He bought it because Sewell Road is a premium address. It's a unique property. It has multiple structures, including a boathouse, a primary house, a guest house. And in the time of owning it, would like to redevelop it. Obviously, there are a lot of nice homes around Sewell Road that have been developed recently into to more estate-like properties. So we are proposing to remove 4 of the structures on this property, to take them down, keeping the boathouse and the garage as they are. So they're, again, currently 6 buildings. We would like to remove 4 of them and rebuild a primary residence in a guest house. So when we went to talk to the planner and the building inspector, they said you have a non-conforming use because you have 2 dwellings on this lot. Mr. Allen said, well, that's the reason why I bought the lot, because of the 2 dwellings, and thinking, that I might like to redevelop it, thinking that that use would be able to be continued. We were told that, obviously, continuing that use and expanding it more than the 25% would require a variance from the board here. So that is why we're here. I can go through the points quickly. So again, in talking with the building inspector, he told us to submit under this the section that is expanding non-conforming buildings more than 25%. So point 1, the variance will not be contrary to public interest. This is a relatively large, one of the larger lots on the waterfront on Sewell Road at 1.6 acres. It currently has a second dwelling unit, and we simply ask that we be allowed to continue that use of the second dwelling. We're proposing to reduce the number of buildings from, and I had a typo in my application, so it should be from 6 buildings to 4, which would give us which would bring us more conforming with the zoning. And we would also be moving currently the existing guest house, the accessory garage, and the primary residence are all in setbacks. So our new redevelopment proposes that all buildings get pulled within setbacks and dimensionally are conforming. Again, our only nonconformity here is the 2 dwellings. Well, that is our nonconformity. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because, again, we seek to make the property more dimensionally conforming with current shorefront zoning dimensions in regards to the location and number of buildings on the property. It's a large lot with older structures. And we're going to consolidate buildings and clean up the property. Substantial justice is done. Again, the property currently has a guest house. We are moving buildings out of the side yard setback on the north side. We're pretty close to the neighboring building. Moving these buildings will allow us to revegetate that area and give some more privacy to neighboring properties. The primary house will be larger than the 25% expansion that would have been allowed under a special exception, but we believe that the size of these buildings are in keeping with adjacent properties and other properties along the waterfront on Sewell Road. Again, we're a large lot, and the current house that's there is a small house compared to neighboring properties, which brings us into 4. The values of surrounding properties will not be diminished. Again, there's a scattering of older buildings on this property. The previous owner put in a bunch of concrete drainage ways and swales, and it's kind of makeshift water management, and this will be a professionally developed landscaped property, which will increase property values, or will increase the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and therefore will not diminish others' property values. The special conditions of this property that distinguishes it from other properties, we're one of the larger lots. It's one of there are a few properties along the way that haven't been redeveloped, but many neighboring properties have been developed, professionally landscaped, and we're seeking to make improvements that will bring them up to the standards of neighboring dwellings. We're unique in that we have the 2 dwelling units, and again, we seek that we could continue that use while maintaining all of the other dimensional regulations that are required. And the proposed use is reasonable. The new buildings and landscape will make the property more conforming. The continued use of 2 dwellings used by the homeowner. There's no increase in traffic or use. We're on septic out there. We're on sewer out there. Excuse me. So there's no location for a septic, and we believe that this is an existing use, and would like to continue that with improvements. Do you want to add your? So I guess I have to take this with me. This is the same site plan. We actually were asked to submit a shoreland site plan that would show our lot coverage, and I just wanted to, so we didn't have this plan when I did the application in January, but the maximum lot coverage for this zone is 30%. The existing lot coverage is 24.1%, because again, with the existing buildings to be removed in red here, and there's a lot of asphalt, concrete drainage swales, and some homeowner makeshift patios and drainage. I don't know what's going on there. So the 4 buildings in red would be demolished. The buildings in orange are proposed new buildings. We are proposing to do some permeable asphalt. Our proposed coverage, existing is 24.1, proposed would be 18.2%. So we are improving the lot coverage, even though our building is bigger with our landscaping techniques, and we are able to maintain our unaltered area needed for this proposal as well. So all in all, I believe that we are improving the site conditions, the water management. There's a culvert up here because we're on the downhill side coming from across the street, and we are actually taking quite a bit of the neighborhood water here, which is creating a wetland, an isolated wetland here. Obviously the water then trickles down towards down to the lake, and again, part of our proposal and why we're suggesting keeping this building separate again, using the guest house, but keeping it separate, moving it within the setbacks, and not including it in, I mean, if we had all one large building, we could do this as one building, but it really creates a water dam right here where all of our neighborhood water is coming. So the proposal is to keep this separate. We're able to manage this water. I mean, it's coming down right here. And obviously there's no stopping water. So we're improving conditions over here, giving more privacy. We'd like to keep the guest house separate so that we're able to mitigate our water and control it before it gets down to the lake that we're inheriting from Upper Sewell Road. So this plan should have made it, I think they would have added it to your packet, I would have hoped, but we were asked for this, I don't know, a month ago in preparation for this meeting.
It's a great plan. It's very clear.
Thank you.
It's nice to see, even from here, you can see the plan.
Yep.
Okay, board members, questions?
Could you just say again, please, what the guest house location does as far as mitigating water? What does it slows down the flow of water off of Sewell Road?
The guest house itself, we've looked at this plan. I've been working with the Allens for about 18 months on this. We looked at, because when we went to the building department, they said, well, if you can make this all one building, you can connect it with breezeways, passageways, tunnels, and we looked at making it all one building, lot coverage, all of our other dimensions conform, you know, and I had basically kind of brought this structure up. It just traps water. So the landscape architect, who's not here, but that we're working with, you know, said I really need some softscape in between these buildings in order to be able to slow down the run of water. Otherwise, you know, we basically would have put it underground, and it's, you know, we're not allowed just to sheet water out into the lake anyways. But so by keeping this as a separate building, we're able to bring in drainage, softscape, natural rain, you know, rain gardens. That's all to be designed. It will be designed.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand what was happening. So
but it gives us more space in here rather than one big, you know, U-shaped building.
In the space, we'll have plantings in it, which will further help drain some of the water coming off of the road.
Yes, plantings, rock gardens, and other natural features to slow that water down as it goes downhill.
Thank you.
I'm wondering by what percentage, what above the 25%, what's the square footage of the two structures, or how much do you exceed the 25%?
The 25%, so what I was told, if we wanted to develop this property and we wanted to use it as a special, say a special permit, we would take the guest house square footage, which is 671, and the primary house square footage, which is 2,420. Bear with me, those two numbers together add up to 3,822. In order to meet the special criteria, I believe we would only be able to expand under that 25% or less. So that would be 955 square feet if we were to stay under that 25%. So for a lot of this size, which is almost 70,000 square feet, that would give us a building footprint of about 4,777. Does that make sense? It made sense.
Not to me.
It made sense when I was doing it.
No, I mean, the thought process makes no sense to me there, not the math. So
the planner and the building inspector said you have a non-conforming use. You can only expand the non-conforming use to 25%.
But from my point of view, only one of those buildings is going to be non-conforming, not both together.
They told me specifically that those buildings
nice.
Together are non-conforming, and because I said, well, we can expand the primary house, and it's really the guest house we're asking permission for, and they said no, is the entire property that is
Okay,
the use.
I guess I disagree with that.
I also disagreed, but I didn't feel like I had
No, fine, yeah, I get it.
the leg.
Any other questions from the board?
So how big would the guest house be if you expanded it by 25%?
That might
It's
not be the number I
671
did. 671
It's like another
times 1.25.
Another 118 square feet.
Yeah.
So 789,
Let's see, 800 square feet.
800,
839.
839? Okay, I believe you, you're an engineerish.
I go
839?
with Chuck.
I knew you'd ask me the one number I didn't calculate.
671 plus another 25% is
Thank
838.7,
you.
839 square feet.
Or 840, yeah. Is that existing house, is that 671 all living area?
The existing, the
Yes,
current
the guest-
existing house or?
Current- guest
Current
house.
existing cottage?
Oh, that is the footprint. So it does include the covered front porch, which is technically exterior, but we calculated it based on the footprint.
And is it one floor?
It is currently one floor, yes.
And how big is the one that you are presenting?
The one we have proposed on this plan is 1,347 square feet.
Is that the footprint or
That
the
is
living area?
the footprint, so it includes the roof line, a covered entry.
What is the living area?
Okay.
$996 square feet.
So it's a 1347 footprint, but only 900 something is living area?
I have a covered entry and a roof line, and yes.
Is there a second floor?
We'd like to have a small loft space built into the roof line, but honestly, we haven't gotten, it depends on what you guys approve.
Does anybody here remember, without me looking it up, whether it's the footprint or whether it's the living space of the footprint of the living space?
With regard to what?
Expansion? The baseline for expansion? Okay,
Do you want to speak?
I'll look.
I do have Randy Tetro here, who is our surveyor and civil engineer, who may be able to speak to that.
I think I would leave that up to you guys, but I think the expansion is normally viewed as the footprint, like you said earlier tonight.
We did one, I just can't remember what we did.
Yeah, and originally they went by the footprint. They didn't count the volume expansion.
No, I get that part.
Yeah, yeah. So I think sometimes if there is a existing, if it's existing non-conforming footprint, then the volume becomes applicable. More
But
so-
is that footprint living area, or does it include covered porches?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's what I need.
I'm not sure if there's a distinction there, Audrey, but there very well may be. The only one that I dealt with, they counted it as just space. That's what they counted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says here in.
What number is it?
So I'm in 175-43, let's see, I'm in A1D.
C.
The basis for determining the maximum and cumulative expansion limitations. 25% shall be the existing lawfully non-conforming footprint measured to the overhang extent of the non-conforming structure, excluding features such as exterior stairs and non-habitable areas such as open decks. So that meant to me all overhangs, including porches, were included in that footprint square footage. But it doesn't say anything about the second floor additional.
Well, I've got something else here under 17543AC. The last line, the 25% expansion shall be a total cumulative expansion based on the lawfully existing non-conforming structure.
So I think what that means is next year when they come back for more expansion, they can't do it. That's what I always read that as meaning. Like, if you come this year and you do 10%, then next year, 5 years from now, you can do another 15%, but that's it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Yeah, that's how I have always read it. So so here's my thought. I don't agree that you take both structures as being non-conforming. I mean, one was non-conforming until you moved it back out of the setback. Now it's not non-conforming anymore. And so I would go with, you can make one house as big as you want, and the other one, I would like to see no more than 25% footprint, which allows you a second floor, which is like 1,600 square feet. And that's, without a variance, that's what I see. That would be a special exception for one of these buildings, and the other one is whatever it is. I guess I'm explaining it to you too, as to how I would look at this.
Mm-hmm. So we went into the building department last year around this time when
I believe you, but I think it's our decision.
I don't even, as long as your decision overrides other people's interpretations, then So
the zoning board decides what the zoning means.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they agree with me. As a group, we decide what the terms of the zoning means as best we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you want to hold that thought? And do you have any other questions? We'll come back to that.
Sure.
Anyone from the public wants to speak for this application? Anyone in the public wishes to speak opposed to the application? Anyone in the public wants to speak about the application in general? I don't see a lot of people rushing up to the microphone. Aha.
I didn't come all this way not to say anything. Basically, a couple of points that I think Amy missed. One is we're removing 2 additional structures that had additional square footage that we're not going to be reusing, which is the garage and I guess it's a shed out there. So if you sort of take the square footage of the buildings we're not using, it comes to right about 1347. And so we're not adding more square footage space than we currently have at this point. We're just consolidating the stuff that's not conforming into a space that is conforming. So I think that's one thing we thought long and hard about. And the other thing is that, we're trying to, we know we can make it as big as possible, but we don't want to cram a bunch of square footage on the lakefront. We want to fit in more with everything else. So by having it separate without a tunnel or a walkway, stuff like that, and pushing it further back, it sort of uses the property better. And the amount of money that I'm going to have to spend on, hardscape and landscape and getting everything, the property site work needs to be done, it doesn't justify 800 square foot guest house to spend that kind of money for the land and, all the site work that's going to be done to take care of the water coming across the road that really probably, I don't think should be coming across the road into my property. So there's a lot of work involved, and 800 square foot guest house, it doesn't justify the work. So we could add it to the main house, but I think this is the best solution.
He does make a point that the three structures that he's taking down three structures and building one new one, and the square footage is just about equivalent.
My response to that is those are not
Dwellings.
They're not dwellings. They're not finished space. They're outbuildings.
Correct. Yes.
And the 800 square foot is really, if you go for 2 floors, it's 1,600 square feet.
Well, that's, I don't know if you remember me asking you that out on the site walk, that I wanted, taking that, the square footage that's going to be non-pervious now, and it's going to be turned into pervious. I was just saying that, but it's sort of along the same lines as what Chuck was just saying. You're taking those other buildings down, and you're making more pervious land on the property to make up. In my mind, it is to make up for the bigger guest house. It sort of makes me feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm not making any sense, but.
I did the area, those 2 buildings in the setbacks is 429 square feet. I did check the math on that, but I think in general, we're improving the permeable land on this property as a whole, just because it is, it is taking on water. We recognize that, and the current solution is really a makeshift one. So we do think the permeable nature of the driveway and improvements to the landscape will outweigh, if we're allowed a bigger building, would outweigh that.
I have a question a little bit different from what we're talking about at the moment. You told us about the water that comes down across your land. Did I understand you saying that it comes from Sewell Road, across the road and down into your land?
There's a culvert that collects water from the opposite side of the street, and it comes under Sewell Road, and it dumps in that upper corner of the property, and therefore then makes its way down to the lake. And they've, again, the previous homeowner has made some makeshift drainage swales and rocks, and, some of it are actually like poured concrete.
So who put that in, the town?
No, the previous homeowners have had to deal with this water. The town, it doesn't appear that the town has done anything here. It just dumps out in that corner.
You mean who put the culvert in?
Yeah.
Oh, the town, I'm sure, but it goes under the street. I'm sure the town did that, but then it just ends right there in that depression.
And so it's not taking care of the water?
No, it just sits there. I mean, that may be a different discussion, but I think.
And so you're proposing to put rain gardens and drainage for.
We're going to have to do some extensive, since it's going to be a bigger house, and we don't want to make it like a U shape like she said. We're trying to separate it so we can have better avenues for the water to flow, because some of the water is not ours, a lot of it's not.
Well, that's what bothers me.
Yeah, that bothers me too. Especially, there's actually 2 culverts that come underneath Sewell Road onto my property.
Have you done any calculations? Are you going to be able to handle that water?
Well, it's been handled for,
I know, but you're changing.
Well, that's why we hired Norway Plains to handle all that for us.
So you've done all those calculations and everything?
Well,
Suzanne, we did preliminary shoreline
Yeah, speak up a little,
calculations.
please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We did preliminary shoreline calculations. We haven't submitted to the state or anything yet, because obviously they need ZBA relief to do this footprint, and there's no sense in doing that calculation unless they get it. What the plan is to do is to take the impervious down to under 20%, somewhere between 15 and 20, by adding pervious pavement and a stormwater management plan to handle the runoff. The existing runoff runs down that side of the property, and when it gets down by the house, it kind of trickles down over the grass. Now, the original people did not actually a bad job, because they'd lived there so long historically. They did a lot of their own little drainage things made out of stone and so forth for high water events that mostly took care of it. But the age and the, kind of the overall situation now is that we're getting a little more intense storms, as you know, and we're getting a little more runoff than normal. So that's going to have to be taken care of with not only the stormwater management plan, but any of the landscaping that the landscape architect is working on. So as far as is it set in stone, no. It's going to be subject to the state and the town shoreline permit. And whatever percentage they come up with will be subject to those qualifications. So in Wolfeboro's case, if you're between 15 and 20, you've got to have at least one stormwater management feature. If you're over 20, you've got to have an engineered stormwater management plan. But in any case, if you're going to build on this site, you're going to want one anyway. And I think the owner and the architect and the landscape architect are all in agreement with that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so back to the, where were we, the square footage and the guest cottage, and what were you calculating over there? You calculating?
No, I'm just rereading those ordinances.
I guess, do you want to make a motion as to what you prefer, or do you want to?
I think we have to go through the 5 criteria, don't we?
Yeah, we do, but we got to get rid of this issue first and then go through the 5 criteria. Oh, all right, we can go through the 5 criteria and then take care of your issue after. All right, fine. So we'll close the public hearing, and the board will deliberate on the 5 criteria. I presume there's no further questions from the board?
nope.
Okay. All right, let's, 5 criteria. Okay, so 1 and 2, the spirit, the variance is not contrary to the public interest, and the spirit of the ordinance is observed. It doesn't conflict with the explicit ordinance or the purpose of the ordinance. It doesn't alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
True.
They're all big houses with a lot of outbuildings. He certainly has a large enough piece of land to accommodate this, so it's not affecting public health and safety.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a residence in a residential neighborhood, and it's similar to its surroundings.
Okay. Number 3, substantial justice is done. The benefit to the applicant doesn't outweigh the harm to the general public. I always say that backwards, so I don't know if I said it backwards this time or not. What harm does it do to the general public
None.
or to other individuals?
I guess I don't have anything to say about that right now.
You're neutral on that. You neutral?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I will
Okay.
let you know.
All right, that's allowed. Other board members, do you think it fits the criteria for substantial justice?
Neutral, yes.
Well, it does or it doesn't. You got to get a yes on all 5 to get approval.
Yes.
Okay. Number 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished, and I think I heard they're bringing more into compliance the nonconformity. So that's a plus to the neighborhood. And we don't have any information that's in the negative.
Nope.
And actually, they're building quite an estate to improve the neighborhood. Number 5, little enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. And the key to that is it's a reasonable use.
Well, the special condition of the property here is stated that it has 2 residences. And the special condition of the property can't be the same reason that you're asking for a variance. It's not special because it has a nonconformity. And I have a hard time expressing how this works, but if everybody used the reason that they need a variance as a special conditions, everybody would have a special condition. So that is not, that doesn't hold water. The special condition that it has 2 residences is not a special condition for this purpose.
The applicant must establish that because of special conditions of the property, the restriction as applied to the property does not serve the purpose in a fair and a substantial way. The applicant must establish that the special condition of the property caused the proposed use to be reasonable. The use must not alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
So it's like, you know, I'm applying for a variance to increase the height of my house because my house is taller than the ordinance allows already. It's like it's a circular discussion.
I get it.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? What is the variance exactly? The variance is, are we applying the variance to just the guest house?
I believe, and this is a difference between the opinion of the building office that sent them here and me. I don't think that you count both buildings together because only one of them creates the second dwelling unit, one or the other. You know, clearly you're going to say the bigger house is the primary existing lawful building and the smaller house creates the second dwelling unit. It could go the other way around, but that wouldn't make any sense.
What is the logic? What would happen if you treated both houses as the subject of the variance? If you,
well, that's what they did.
That's what they did, and now what? And if you combine them both, we're expanding the 2 of them, the total square footage of the 2 of them by more than 25%, right?
Right. What that means is you're saying that the first house is restricted in how big it can be. And I don't believe that's true. The first house can be as big as it can be as long as it meets the setbacks and the height requirements.
Right. I would think that's true.
Counting them both is not appropriate.
Okay, so I agree with you. I just wanted to rethink this. I agree that it doesn't make sense to count the big house as part of this issue. They can build whatever they want.
Now, if they had kept it in front of that setback line, we'd be having...
It'd be a different discussion.
We'd be adding that in.
So the only discussion point is the guest house.
The second dwelling unit.
The second dwelling.
In my mind, yeah.
So the second unit can't be expanded by more than 25% because...
Without this variance.
Why? Without the variance.
Because it's a non-conforming, it's a second dwelling. It can be expanded up to 25% footprint plus the second floor. But if it goes over the 25% footprint, it needs a variance, which is why they're here.
Okay. So if we grant them a variance, they can go up to the 1,300 square feet that they're asking for.
Correct.
Okay.
The second floor footage doesn't count as part of the 25%.
Well,
Correct.
but are we
Second-
restricting them to a smaller footprint and 2 floors?
So,
How do we get to that?
Not smaller. Their footprint is bigger than it is,
Right.
up to 25%.
25%, which was 839
Right.
square feet.
But they're allowed to build the second floor on that without restriction, so that's 1,600 square feet of house.
Right, but they're not allowed to go above 839 square feet of footprint?
Not without a variance. They can do it up to that with a special exception. That would be expanding a non-conforming second dwelling on the lot, up to
Right.
25% with a special exception. If they want to go bigger than that with the footprint, it's a variance, which is why they're here.
Right. So we could grant them a variance to go to a bigger footprint for the guest house?
That's what they're asking for.
Yes. Okay. You're pushing for no more than 839 square feet, but we can grant more.
Yeah, well, you can if you give a variance. I don't think it meets the criteria of number 5, a hardship between 800 square feet footprint and a 1,600 square foot guest house, as opposed to the mostly one floor house that they're proposing. I don't see what the hardship with that is.
That is true. You have to build a case for hardship now if we go over the 839 square feet.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's no special condition, which started this conversation. In order to have a hardship, you have to have a special condition of the property, which could include buildings or anything built. But your special condition can't also be what you're asking for a variance for,
Right,
because then
understood.
everything would be a special condition.
Well, that special condition also goes on to talk about that there is no reasonable use that can be made of the property that would be permitted under the ordinance. If there is any reasonable use included an existing use that is permitted under the ordinance, this alternative is not available.
Are you reading the second part of the?
Yeah.
So we've talked about this before, but that part is the old standard.
Is the what?
Is the old standard. If you can do anything else with the property, you don't get a variance. That's not the way we look at it now. We look at it on the top part of that variance with, are there special conditions? Is there a reason to give a variance? Not the second part where it says you can't
Well,
give a
then
variance.
just stay with the part of reasonable use. That
It also
hasn't
has
gone
to.
away.
It also has to be a reasonable use.
Yeah, it hasn't gone away.
No.
So we haven't asked the question. Maybe the question's been answered by the discussion and I've missed it, but why can't the guest cottage stay where it is?
Oh, it can. It's just tiny. It can stay where it is, but it kind of screws up the whole plan. I don't have a problem with moving their non-conforming legal use someplace else. I still think, let's see, maybe I should rethink that. I'm not going to think about that. But yeah, they could still use the guest house, but it's not, doesn't fit their plan, and it's way smaller than what they're allowed under the 25% expansion.
So we can sit here and think of all kinds of reasons of things and dream up ideas about what they could do about the guest house, but they've asked for a specific
this is what they want to do.
specific request that requires a variance. And so we either grant it or deny it without prejudice, and they can bring back another plan for this guest house. Because everything else...
Can we, I think it might be important for this case and for the future
I'm
for
not
us-
hearing you, what?
Might be important for this case and for the future for us to talk about whether we agree that the footprint of both shouldn't be added together for this expansion. I mean, how do we approach this case down the road? Is it the way I explained it? Does that make sense? Do we want to say, yeah, that's the way we think this works? So that the next step would be, if we denied it, they would know they wouldn't have to add those two together in order to come back.
Well, since we're not engineers and since we're not attorneys, why don't we take this under advisement? We have 90 days to approve it or disapprove it and get more information specific to this question.
If you'd like to do that, that's fine. My mind is pretty well settled on how I look at it, but of
Your
course
mind
you could
is,
always
but
get...
my mind is not.
Yeah.
Is your mind settled?
No, I like the idea of further discussion with the planning department and possibly the legal.
Yeah,
legal
I'd like more. I'd like a better understanding myself. So I'm going to make a motion to. Wait, where am I? I'm going to make a motion to continue this hearing until May. What did we say it was? 5th?
May 5th.
Yeah, and get an answer to this situation about square footage and guest cottage. Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Yes.
I got a second. In favor?
Second. I'm in favor, yes.
Favor.
I'm not in favor.
I'm not in favor. 3-2, yes.
3-2, we continue it.
What, I didn't catch you.
Voted yes.
Yes, so the motion passed 3-2 to continue. So you'll be on the May 5th agenda.
Could I ask you a question? So
Is
if
it
you
technical?
Well, it just has to do with this May. He's coming from Florida. I live an hour away, so we come back May 5th, but you just said you have 90 days to seek counsel and review with planning board. So what happens if you're still reviewing on May 5th? Will you let us know so we don't, I mean, he's got to buy a plane ticket to get here. I know that's not necessarily
I would
your...
hope when we come back May 5th, we've gotten an answer that clarifies this question.
Okay, because that's only 30 days.
And you'll
So,
either get an approval or a denial without prejudice.
So I think she's asking if we don't have enough information, can we let them know in advance that we need to continue it again?
I really hope we have an answer. I'm not going to be satisfied if we don't get an answer before that meeting, so we can make a clear-cut decision.
So yes, in other words, we are capable of getting an answer within 30 days.
I believe so. And then I'll go right to the attorney, and they'll give us the answer.
All right.
I won't fool around. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you on the 5th. Okay, so now let me make a note here. Oh, my pen isn't writing. 5. Okay, what did we give for time there? 8:30?
8:22.
Okay. All right, so I'll entertain the next application, and that is the last one for this evening, which is Atwell on Elm, tax map 204-8, 14 Elm Street, case 11V25, public hearing for a variance under section 175-65, permitted uses, 175-67B, natural woodland buffer standards, and 175-64A, 1 setback requirement, front yard, street. This is for 3 variances for 1 property, and I guess I'll open the public hearing. And would you introduce yourself for the record and speak right into that microphone? It's voice activated.
Yes, thank you. My name is Chris Winiarski. I'm an attorney from Divine Millimet, representing Atwell on Elm LLC. So I don't look like an attorney today. I've been on the road since 7 a.m. and really since Wednesday, if we're being honest here. But as you mentioned, we are seeking 3 variances to essentially install 7 parking spaces that were approved on a site plan from sometime in the 1980s. I don't know the exact date, but it was quite a while ago. And so the way those 3 variances work, one is expansion of the non-conforming use, because the interpretation is that the parking spaces are a structure and therefore it is an expansion. The second is a setback variance for the front setback, which is again subject to interpretation because we don't actually front on a street at all. So it's, you could say that we don't really have a front setback requirement because we don't have a front setback. But we're going with the interpretation we received. And then the third variance is disturbance of the woodland buffer. The area that we're proposing to install these parking spaces is currently grass, so it's already disturbed. We're just doing a different disturbance now. So technically, it is a disturbance. I think generally the interpretation that we received from your interim planner was a very conservative one, and I understand why. I understand the history, and we're not really against that because I think we meet the variance criteria pretty squarely anyway. So I know most of you were present at the 5 o'clock site visit and gone at 5 because I got there at 4:59 and I didn't see anyone, but I think everyone saw the property except maybe one member maybe. But
No, we were all there.
you were all there. Okay, I wasn't sure. So you know what we're proposing. Essentially, this building was approved back in the 80s. These parking spaces were shown in that grass area. You can see how the parking that's there is really not sufficient for the business that's there, or really any business that would be there. So it's just a matter of doing what was intended and approved for this property long ago. To apply that, what I think is a relatively simple factual situation to understand, applying that to the variance criteria, I'll go through them with my take on it. You can certainly...
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a question, if I may.
Sure.
And it's going to sound very stupid, but stupid is as stupid is. What zone is this in? Will you come here? No, would you come up here and point on this zoning map?
It's shoreland residential.
No, what other zone is it?
What other zone?
It's a zone.
Shoreline residential.
I know, but is it not also either village residential?
No.
Is it, well, that's why I wanted him to point on this map, the zoning map.
That's way too little.
Yeah. I'm not sure I could find it on that. But so shoreland residential is not an overlay district, it's a zone.
Right. It doesn't have an underlying other zone. It is the shoreland residential district.
Okay, lesson learned.
There you go.
Okay.
Can I ask questions?
Sure.
So I was really confused looking at the application because section 175-65 is permitted uses, and then you say expansion of use, and through here it does say legally non-conforming, and those don't make sense to me because one is not the same as the other. It's either permitted, not permitted, or legally non-conforming. So I'm not sure the section, I don't see how it fits under permitted uses because it's legally non-conforming.
Okay, so the interpretation, I get exactly what you're saying. The interpretation that we received is, since it's not listed within the permitted uses, we're seeking variance from that part of the ordinance because we're expanding something that is
Okay,
not
I can
in
kind
there.
of see that, but what I don't get with that is, we're talking about the parking, and the parking's not a primary use, it's accessory. So it can't fit into permitted or unpermitted uses, because accessory uses are permitted.
But it's expansion because the parking is a structure? I
That's
get
right.
it. There's an ambiguity in the ordinance, and it's hard to
So
resolve.
it's legally non-conforming expansion is what you're looking at, not whether it's a permitted use or not. I can kind of see what you're saying.
I can see it that way, too, yeah.
Yeah, but we generally get these applications as expansions, not permitted or unpermitted uses.
So I had to go with, understanding the background here. So this started out,
I have this right here, and I'll ask you some questions about it. So you're right that it was developed in 1989 as a railroad museum with the 30 by 36 addition and 14 parking spots on the site plan. My question is, has anybody determined whether that was vested?
so yes. Two people determined, and they determined differently. So
Do we have that?
So the first determination, I don't believe we had in writing. It was a verbal determination from the former planner, who determined that it was substantially complete, and my client proceeded under that determination, which I think is reasonable, but I can see that you could argue the other way too. The second determination from your current interim planner is that that is not the case, that it's not vested. So, again, looking to not sort of rock the boat and challenge that decision, figuring that we do pretty squarely meet the variance criteria, we went with that more conservative interpretation. But I would have probably, if it was me making the decision, I would have said it was vested.
So I like to walk through this because I don't think it's really fair to people, even if the variance criteria look like a slam dunk. If they don't need a variance, they shouldn't have to go get a variance. It restricts them down the road, So
Well, this
that's
board
why
can make that determination.
That's why I'll go back and I look at this, and with that first site plan, and I'm not a vested expert, I know that's a very legal determination, but I do see...
It's easy, though.
It's easy?
It's easy because it's substantial completion, so that's all you have to determine.
I do see that in 2019, so this CO was issued for the Railroad Museum and that site plan in 1989. In 2019, 10 years later, there was an expansion of a non-conforming structure when they put that front on the building. They came to the ZBA for a special exception, and in the notes, the planner says, 1989 Planning Board Site Plan Review, Railroad Museum approved.
Well, I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's...
I don't know that you would have seen that. That was kind of buried.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm not a vesting expert, but those two things lead me to think that's a really good argument. Now, the bad part. I think...
Do we need a bad part?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
The change from a museum to a retail has a change of occupancy permit, but it should be a change of use. And it should have come before the board because it's not a permitted use, right?
Okay.
Change of occupancy from retail to personal service is also a change of use, and we just heard one tonight. Same situation. That's it.
So that having happened without appeal is
I agree.
water under the bridge now? But I do see your point. Your point is taken.
What I want to do is I want to make sure as this property moves forward, the next owner, or this owner, when she sells it or when she changes to a different use, that everybody understands which way to go with that, and we don't have this again.
Well, so you've made your
That was my
statement
that
into the
was it.
record,
Yeah.
and if there is another person that purchases it, it behooves them to look into the record and see the history of this unusual situation.
So I guess I would ask, and this might be a big ask, but would the board consider making a zoning determination as to whether this property is actually vested?
Whether it's vested?
Yeah, vested with the old plan, which
Could you tell me what vesting is?
vesting means that they got an approval, a site plan approval and a building permit to do something with the property. And within a certain amount of time, they completed most of that project. And so they had invested 75% or whatever the cost is, and therefore the rest of that approved plan is okay to do at some other time. And that is vesting. And so they had a 38 by 40 addition on the building. That was the project that included additional parking on the site plan. They built the building, they opened the museum. They didn't need the parking in that point because they were using the neighbor's parking with permission, so they didn't do it. I don't know whether that construction of the building reaches a level of vesting compared to 7 parking spaces, but I suspect it does.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, I'm not a vesting expert, so I don't know.
Well, I
I'm
can,
okay
I can
with
add
that.
something that may help you in making that decision. So it is exactly as you described it. I mean, it's did we hit that substantial completion or not? And that's a finding of fact, plain and simple. The legal criteria is not more complicated than that. Now, when it comes to findings of fact of the ZBA, your word is final unless it's absurd or not supported by any evidence. So you completely have the authority to do this if you so choose. And it is that finding. Plain and simple, substantial completion is doing the entire project but those parking spaces substantial or not? That's
So
the question.
is there any mathematical number for substantial?
No.
Great.
It's subjective. It's that, I'm like what I'm telling you, really, the law is those 2 words, substantial completion. Because you can see how it would be hard to put a number on it because what are we talking about? Like things are different. Are we talking building, paving, seeding lawn? It'd be hard to put a number on it.
I think I would like to support Audrey's suggestion that we make a decision about vesting.
Then that's what I was going to add to, is we've had the issue of vesting come before us before, but it was within the 5-year and they're looking for extension. As a statute, 674-39.
So we have
We have-
dueling handbooks here.
Yeah.
We're
But
both on the
that's a
same
different
page.
Well, no, wait,
vesting.
let me finish. And then what I was going to say, but this is different.
Yeah.
What we're talking about now, Audrey brought up, what percentage is vested? We don't have our attorney telling us what it is in this situation. So the question is, do you want to bring that to the attorney?
Your attorney won't have an answer. There isn't one.
Well, you're not our attorney, so I don't have to take that comment. And
No, I really don't know
if you
why
don't mind,
it's.
we don't know the answer to that.
I
And
feel
I don't
like,
know
And,
that the
you know-
attorney will or will not know the answer.
I think
I'm
it-
asking the board if that's
Let's
something
argue
they'd
the
like to
point.
do.
Let's argue the point and see if where we land on how comfortable we are or not with a number or a percentage.
Jody, what did you want to ask?
I just don't know why we're getting wrapped up so deep on this.
Well, what does it gain if we consider this substantially vested? What does that do?
Well, we don't know.
Nope.
That's,
If we consider it substantially complete and we decide that the project was vested when it happened, then they don't need any approvals to build that parking.
Okay.
They do need to meet storm drainage and DES regulations, but they don't need to meet any zoning regulations that happened after they got vested.
And they got vested in 1989, basically?
Yes. Well, they got a CO in 1989 on their project, on
Okay.
their building.
I'm okay with that idea.
And we can, what you're suggesting is that we consider that still,
We're the board that
Substantially
decides
complete.
that,
Right.
except for a judge.
right.
Yeah. So from my experience, a 30 by 36 commercial addition compared to an additional, now they did create some parking, compared to the extra 6 or 7 parking spaces, the construction is far outvalues the value of construction of parking spaces.
I would agree.
Yeah,
Even with that retaining wall.
yeah.
So Jody, if we consider this as substantially complete, then we don't have to grant any kind of a variance for the parking lot. It's already covered as
So-
just completing the job that was
This would
started in
be-
1989, I think.
A way
right?
of getting it,
Right.
Well, so the construction, the value of the construction is far bigger than the parking spaces. So that's the basis we're saying it's substantially complete. You know,
so we're going to basically give them, they're going to get permission to do the spaces? Or
They are, if we agree,
Yes.
they already have permission. We're,
So we can agree that they already have permission to do it?
yeah, or
Yes.
not.
we could.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
that's how she's looking at it.
All right. I'm on new blood pressure medicine, so I'm a little, anyways, but no, I mean,
So, I mean, can you see that the kind of construction they did is the much larger part of the project than 6 or 7 parking spaces? The 30 by 36 building and fit out?
I guess, I mean, I don't know.
From a cost standpoint?
Yeah,
if you look at it that way.
yeah.
If it,
Yeah.
if it looks, if we can look at it that way, then I would agree, yeah. It's
What's the
parking
time
space-
frame going to be on this? You're talking about moving it to another meeting and talking to the attorney?
We
or
can
just-
decide now. and-
We're going to go
and-
now.
No, I think
Then
that,
it would
And
be
we
a
can-
30-day appeal period if somebody chooses to disagree with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion that we determine that this, the site plan approval associated with the 1989 certificate of occupancy for the Railroad Museum for the 30 by 36 addition and parking spaces was vested.
Second.
Yes.
She seconded it.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yes.
Are we calling a vote here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
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 5.
All right, thank you very much.
Done.
Thanks for staying all night.
No problem.
We'll have to do a findings of fact. We have to do 5 findings of fact.
You said it'll be easy.
Yeah, it will be. It won't be. Is that it?
Wait a minute.
No.
I haven't closed the public hearing.
Oh, okay. Oh, we didn't take public comment, did
We
we?
didn't take public comment.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I have to reopen.
You didn't close it.
I didn't take public comment, so
Let's
I have
take
to
it.
reopen the hearing for the purposes of public comment.
You didn't close it. We can just take public comment. We did vote, but you didn't close the hearing.
I didn't close it.
You didn't close it.
No. All right, so I didn't close it. We took a vote, and I didn't take public comment, so I will take public comment. Anyone in favor of the application care to speak?
My name's Kurt Gilmore. I'm the managing partner of Celebrate Elm LLC, which owns 16 Elm. I'm also the managing partner of Celebrate BBV LLC, which was the seller of the 8 and 14 Elm Street to Atwell. As far as I'm concerned, the parking places are essentially needed. My building at 16 Elm Street has 5 commercial units and 3 residential units in it. I have a total of 17 parking spaces at 16 Elm Street. From what I remember, at 14 Elm Street, there are 5 parking places. With the amount of business that they have, and it sometimes conflicts with my tenants' parking, there's no place for my tenants' parking or my tenants to really park at this point. So these additional parking places are needed. When I bought the building back in 2019, I also talked with the other planning person and was told that the parking places would still be done, could still be done, which is one of the reasons I bought the property. One of the challenges we had was that there was no water in the building when we bought it. And because we own the property next to it, it wasn't enforced that we didn't have restrooms there. At the sale of the property, when Atwell's bought the property, they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to redo the building, have plumbing put into the building, with the intention of putting in parking places, which is what I fully expected when I sold the property to them. So from my standpoint as the abutter, I highly would suggest and appreciate that the parking gets approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak either in favor or opposed, or speak in general? Go ahead. Yeah. And just your name for the record, please, and speak into the microphone.
Sure, thank you. My name is Steve Fetter.
Put the microphone right up to your mouth. Thank you.
My name is Steve Fetter.
Good.
And I'm an abutter at 12 Elm Street. So I have a number of concerns with this. From a vesting standpoint, so we've owned the property for 2.5 years now. And we bought it when Kirk was the owner of the antique museum there. So going back 36 years, how do I, as a buyer, understand that a place that I look to buy and visually see, is really 10 feet of concrete block and a storm fence? So I'm a little concerned, and with taking that approach, I would have some strong reservations about that. I think as I hear you go through your checklist tonight of looking at the character of a property, when we bought the property, it really has the character of a neighborhood. There are offices there, but they're in what looked like home. The front street is a home. It looks like a home. It's offices. The rental property next to us, which is owned by Atwell, is a residential home that they rent to a young couple. And so when we drive into that area, it's going down a driveway to our home, which sits on the bay. And so we drive through this access to get to this area where they're proposing putting 7 spots to get to our property. And so that brings up concerns about, well, when our grandkids come to visit, now we have concerns about their safety. When we go for a walk to the street, there's no sidewalk. So now we've got to go through a bunch more parking spots, going from 20 to 27, to be able to do that. So I think it changes the character of the neighborhood substantially. It changes just the view of the lake from the street. It changes my view from maybe seeing a few cars to seeing, 10 cars and a big concrete wall. I think I have access concerns, to be able to get in and out of that space. I don't think what it's depicted on the map is really accurate in terms of the plan. So those are my concerns.
Before you sit down, do you have a deed for your property that speaks about the right-of-way?
I'm pretty sure it does speak to the right-of-way, but I don't have that with me. I don't remember the details of what it says.
Well, you have a right-of-way to your house.
Yes.
It must be in the deed?
Yes.
I can't hear you. No, wait. Yes, yeah.
It is a deeded right-of-way. I had that checked out by Walker Varney the year before we sold the property, but it is deeded.
There's no width on the deed, though, correct?
There is not a width, correct.
Let me just say that this property still has to go to site plan review, I believe. Oh, no, it doesn't. It already has a site plan. It has to go through storm drainage, vegetation. But to answer your question is, how do you, as a purchaser, know what you're getting into, really, so to speak? It's actually the same as how does the person who purchased the building know what they're getting into. And in the end, it's unfortunately due diligence when you purchase something on both sides.
Right. And I guess...
let me just also say that the volume of traffic, you might be able to mitigate that somewhat with a better overall parking plan. Not that that's your job to do, but it is kind of helter-skelter in there. It could probably be better.
Yeah, and I think the history, if you look at it, it started out as a train museum with one proprietor that was there, and probably a fairly infrequent number of people that came there, to an antique museum with one proprietor, one person that basically staffed it, maybe two at its peak, and limited traffic, to now maybe 3 or 4 staff plus. So it's really changed the character, and so even the zoning not being applied for, again, to me, it's changed the character substantially.
I think that's interesting because I think typically if you look at activity or impact of a museum or activity and impact of a retail space, you would expect them to be higher than a personal service location, which is probably why they're not in business anymore. But generally looking at from a zoning standpoint, I would consider a retail operation to be far more traffic than a personal service, because personal service runs by appointment, essentially, and retail is supposed to be busy, unless they're not, which I guess they weren't.
Right.
So I'm sorry about that. Yep.
And just, it is a personal service, but it's also a studio. Like, it's not just...
Can't hear you.
It's not just individual appointments, it's whole groups of people that come for classes. It's
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Suzanne Fetter. I'm also live at 12 Elm Street.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not just, individuals, it's whole groups that come in for classes.
Right, this goes to the change of use scenario that we
Yeah.
spoke of before.
Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
whole, groups of people that come all at once and then leave all at once. And that's, with 7 parking places and parking places on both sides, it's a lot of,
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah.
Well, the remedy for however this all comes out is there is an appeal process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not going to try and spell it out to you. You will have to search that out yourself.
So anybody will have 30 days to appeal our decision, and the staff at the office can help you with that, can help you with the paperwork for that.
Any other comment? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing and say goodnight. We've taken care of all the applications on the agenda. We have one or two other small items.
Good timing.
What's next?
Two guys here trying to listen to you.
Are you ready for our last?
Yeah, we're still on.
Yeah, for our last.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, meeting dates. So.
Meeting dates?
Yeah, all of you got this in the beginning of the year. Your meeting dates?
I did not get one.
Well, you're welcome to get one anytime you walk through the town hall.
That's what I'll do.
So don't leave.
I'm just getting my calendar.
Yeah. Work sessions were put in there primarily because we were in the process of doing our rules of procedure. And it's confusing to the staff. They think we could have a second meeting more often probably than some of us would want. And so basically, we're just taking that column off.
So the only deal with that is then when we want one, we may not have the room, but although you can go it in the building department.
We'd have enough time to reserve the room. If we set a date, like tonight, if we had set a date for the ones that we'd continued and it doesn't coincide with this room, we'd make it work.
Okay. We do have the applications to work on. We have the applications to work on this year. Remember?
Yeah.
You've been wishing for this.
So the next meeting here is the 5th of May.
Yes, 5th of May.
Yeah, May 5th.
Yeah.
If I had pulled this out in front of me, I wouldn't have to ask you folks what the date was. So May 5th, and then meeting dates, work sessions. So rules of procedure. We have in there that our meeting will end at 10.
Yep.
However, we've agreed to start at 6. That's a 4-hour meeting. So my suggestion is, we do have a waiver provision, but my suggestion is that we say instead of the time, 7 to 10, we just say meetings start at 6 for 3 hours.
I think we just leave it.
And don't put the 10 in there.
Let's just leave it.
If we start at 6, let's.
But I
get it out by 9.
I can't just do that by myself. I have to come back and make just one amendment, put it on the agenda and make one amendment to that.
Just leave it. Leave it at 10 o'clock. And if you want to quit early, you can always quit early.
Right. We can always quit early. It says that we can't go, we don't want to go later. It doesn't say anything about quitting early.
Okay.
Just leave it alone.
All right, I just didn't even want to think about going that long.
Well, no. We already moved 2 cases in order to not go that long. So
I know.
we can manage that.
All right, well, I'm fine, long as we all kind of agree that after 9 o'clock, we're pretty, brain is mush.
Especially when you start at 3.
Yeah, well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we can talk about doing those site visits on a different day.
Yep.
Okay.
Caps, nice.
All right, and then the last item on here is reorganization.
I nominate Suzanne for chair.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I nominate Audrey as vice chair.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
I nominate Chuck as clerk.
Yes,
Will you
I second that.
Will you please accept
I
clerk?
second that.
Start
All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
So you practiced today, so that was good.
Doing that.
And it's
I'm honored, thank you.
Okay, all in favor. And at some point, not tonight for sure, but the selectmen are talking about they're wrestling with fees. Fees. Applicants pay us a fee. So this would be up Audrey's alley, is to look and see how we stack up on fees. No hurry. Add it to your list. Okay, a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
And we